Thanks be to the Emperor you're alive, your lordship. We are most gratified by your return. The crew is full of zeal to carry out any orders you may have. Before anything else, I will hear an account of what's happened to the system's sun. It did look like the sun went out, from what we vaguely saw. What is the current situation on board? Why did you not send a shuttle to the planet for me? What is happening on the planet now? Do we have any hope of retaking the planet? Now, before anything else, I want to hear an account of what happened to the system's sun. The Voxmaster falters. Lord Captain, we saw a number of ships approach the sun, black creations of inhuman make, amalgams of sharp angles and edges. They surrounded the star and then, my apologies, but I struggle to find words that could describe the terrible sight. The xenos made the sun vanish into the void. The interrogator closes his eyes and grimaces. Drukhari. You see Abelard's expression change as if a shadow has suddenly fallen over him, and he rubs his temple warily, as if we did not have enough troubles on our hands already. Would you care to elaborate, Heinrichs? Lord Xenos succeeded the Xenos, enemies of humanity? And how were they able to carry out their plan? Why were they not spotted ahead of time? Explain yourselves. The Xenos, enemies of humanity? Heinrichs nods. A brood of the Eldari, the most cruel and devious of their kind. The design of their ships matches the description provided by the Voxmaster. So Eldari are basically space elves, so the Drukhari are a subset of Eldari? Okay. I hadn't heard of Drukhari yet, so we've seen them mentioned a few times in the game, but they're not a Xeno group that I have heard of elsewhere. Like all Xenos, the Drukhari are a blight on the face of the galaxy, but their technological superiority is indisputable. They abhor and fear warp sorcery, which is why they rely on creations of their twisted intellect. And many of those creations are capable of things that may seem akin to sorcery to the unenlightened eye. The theft of a sun is one example of what they are capable of. Are the Xenos in league with Aurora's cultists? I wish to know more of these Xenos. Is there any chance that we could recover the Rykat star? Enough, we have more pressing matters. Are the Xenos in league with Aurora's cultists? We can rule out that possibility. The Drukhari would never ally themselves with the archenemy's worshippers. If I had to name one thing that humanity and these Xenos have in common, it would be a shared loathing for warp corruption. Heinrich glances around. The situation calls for immediate action, Ignatius. We can continue this conversation later if you so wish, but right now... He gestures at the deck teeming with tumultuous activity. I believe you should assume command. What is the current situation on board? The navigator's sanctum is no longer empty, but the warp engine is still refusing to obey the engine seers. Without it, we cannot perform a warp jump. Pascal's voice buzzes anxiously from his box. It may be angry, or perhaps it is lamenting the injuries it has suffered. I will immediately initiate preparations for a prayer service. If the Omnissiah grants me comprehension, I will appease the machine spirits of this vessel. Why did you not send a shuttle to the planet for me? I do apologize, your lordship, but we were unable to receive your request for evacuation. The Voxlink was overrun with vile interference, screams, blasphemous hymns, and other equally sinister noises. Any who listened to the interference for a protracted period lost their sanity. Several dozen operators went mad monitoring the Voxcaster in the hopes of hearing your voice. Each one of them waited in vain. What is happening on the planet now? Our augur operators are reporting numerous uprisings and other manifestations of the archenemy's powers at various locations on the planet. Based on the fragments of communications picked up by our Vox operators, there is practically no resistance being offered by the governor's forces. Millions of people are converting to the blasphemous Final Dawn cult en masse and assembling in prayer circles. Well, that's bad news. But I guess the governor's forces are probably not functioning properly since the governor himself is now dead. Do we have any hope of retaking the planet? I fear that Rykad Minoris is lost. The situation is deteriorating by the minute. We must leave the system as soon as possible. However, there are still people on the planet who have not succumbed to heresy and who are worthy of rescue. Besides the small number of our own shuttles, we also have this shuttle salvaged from the starport. The dark eyes of Sister Battle Flash. We must save as many as we can. This has all happened for a reason. Saint Argenta, whose name I carry with reverence and trepidation, is famed for saving the people of a dying world through the power of prayer. The God Emperor himself sent a star from the heavens that lifted the saint and her followers up to the sky, away from corruption and death. We must do as she did, direct our own efforts to saving those people who at this moment look to the heavens in hope of salvation. We also know that we need more people, and we were promised that after our triumphant celebration, we would get the people, and that has failed to happen, I'm assuming. The lives of the peasants are of little value. Our prime objective is to save the Holy Relic, the miraculous fusion reactor, and the electro-priests who guard and tend to it. I mean, could we take that with us? Because I'm guessing the answer is no. Abelard furrows his brow. Every moment we spend in proximity to a dying world, we are putting ourselves at risk. Your life, Lord Captain, is far more valuable than all of Rykad Minoris. The Von Valencia's dynasty cannot be allowed to perish, and so lamentable though it is, we must rule out the idea of any evacuation. Heinrich's eyes, like two deep, dark pools, are resolutely fixed on you. The world is doomed, and its inhabitants along with it. The disappearance of the star was the final nudge towards death, the finale of the Cult of the Final Dawn's plans. I once witnessed a similar event, a world that had surrendered to the servants of the archenemy and permitted corruption to enter too deep. At the moment, millions of people are bowing down before those who promised them salvation, and they are willingly giving over their souls to chaos, a sacrifice great enough to bring forth a demon world. That's very bad news. Demon worlds are no joke. Our only hope of stopping this process is to retreat to a safe distance from the planet and conduct targeted bombing of the Electro Priest Monastery. If we blow up the reactor, a thermonuclear reaction will follow. The world's oxygen will evaporate, killing off the entire biosphere. In doing this, we will save millions of souls from a fate far worse than death, and we will save Rykad Minoris from becoming an outpost of the archenemy. Yeah, Exterminatus is always a big deal, but if things get bad enough, it's better that than creating a demon world. Only death can rescue these people. The Undying One has reached out his hand to this world. It is time for him to reap his harvest. We must not reject his design, lest millions of names never reach him, and instead perish in the depths of the Imperium. Death is a mercy, Domin Ignatius. Whatever fate you choose for this world, I urge you to make haste, Lord Captain. The planet is burning in raging flashes of crimson and purple. I can see it even from orbit, as do I see that the storm is already upon us. With every moment that we waste, it grows ever more difficult and perilous to steer the ship through the warp's turbulent currents. I'm with the lady on this. Enough talking. We need to get out of here while we still can. Why do we not try and evacuate at least some of the people? Which of the planet's inhabitants can we evacuate? Dogmatic, set an optimal course and carry out an orbital strike on the Electro Priest Monastery. Rykad Minoris must fall. It feels bad, but I definitely agree with that. We will not waste any time on this world, pull back and begin preparations for translation of the warp. Why can we not try to evacuate at least some of the people? For the simple reason the transformation process will soon become irreversible and our sole weapon against it useless. The energy released by the bombardment could stoke the warp energies. I have never witnessed the aftermath of bombing a demon world before, but there's enough evidence of such attempts for me to say with confidence that you do not want to see it. Which of the planet's inhabitants can we evacuate? I'm worried if I say that it's going to start us down a path of evacuation that stops us from being able to carry out the orbital strike. Because it seems like he's saying we just don't have the time to do both. But I do want to rescue people if I can. It's asking a question. I'm not ordering us to do the evacuation, I think. Which of the planet's inhabitants can we evacuate? The nobles you rescued at the starport have given their coordinates of shelters where we can find surviving aristocrats and their families. As for Sergeant Margar's troops, they will help to control the crowds of frightened commoners and prevent the shuttles from being overloaded. Ha! So I was planning on rescuing survivors to have them work my ship. The idea of rescuing nothing but nobles and saying, okay, go slave away in the underbelly of my ship amuses me, but feels like that's not what we're talking about. Thanks to you, we have salvaged many shuttles from the starport that we can now use. Nobles deserve to be saved above all others. Have the pilots extract all the commoners who have not yet converted to the cult of the Final Dawn. The miraculous fusion reactor must be saved. Set an optimal course and carry out the orbital strike on the monastery. Or pull back. This definitely feels like I'm choosing one option. Because I wish I could do all three of these. Save the nobles, save the commoners who have not converted, and then blow up the planet. But that's not going to be how this works, I'm almost certain. Can I save at this point? No. Can't save mid-conversation, that's fair. Like, we already promised we were going to rescue the commoners. But I'm almost certain if I choose this option, we don't get to blow up the planet and stop it from becoming a demon world. Based on what Heinrich said earlier. Yeah, why can we not try to evacuate at least some of the people? Because the process will soon become irreversible. Which, I'm certain that means if I try to rescue some of the people, it's irreversible and we can't do this, so... Yeah. I'm guessing Heinrich knows what he's talking about. He's part of the Inquisition, and that this is going to turn into a demon world. And number one thing is to stop it from becoming a demon world. Sorry for all of the innocents who we are going to kill before they turn to chaos themselves. And yes, also sorry Pascal, because we are intentionally blowing up the fusion reactor that you want to save. Alright, let's set an optimal course to carry out an orbital strike on the Electro Priest Monastery. Reichheim Minoris must fall. Yes, Lord Captain, I will immediately inform the navigation and artillery decks of the impending maneuver. Feels bad. Heinrich inclines his head. The right choice, Lord Captain. May the sacred Exterminatus cleanse this veil of corruption. The bridge is in upheaval. The technomat's prayers mix together in a senseless cacophony, while servitors work hastily to remove a hardened crust of sacred unguents from the warp engine's components. In the middle of this tumult stands Pascal with a data slate clutched in his hands, seemingly disconnected from the flurry of activity around him. What's going on here? Magos, why don't you assume control of the technomats? Surely their contributions will speed things up. Pascal, this is now your ship and your temples. Start acting like it, you blasted cog. No! That's terrible. Magos, if you do not bring the situation under control, we will all perish. Act swiftly. Crew, heed the word of Magos Haneman. Pascal, I kindly request that you take charge of this mess. We will first ask what's going on here. The warp sextant is not responding to commands. The ship's spirit is rejecting our prayers in anger. I am currently calculating a plea that might appease the noble spirits. Why don't you assume control of the ship's technomats? Surely their contribution will speed things up. They would only be a hindrance. I am searching for a way to rectify the error. Pascal is muttering without taking his eyes off the data slate. There is a certain anxiousness in the way he moves his mechadendrites. I'm not going to insult him or, pressure him like, you have to deal with this. Obviously he's trying. Crew, heed word of Magos Haneman. Pascal, I kindly request that you take charge of this mess. Thank you, your lordship. You're right. Pascal's voice changes when he addresses the crew. He now speaks with authority and resolve. Tech comrades, heed my instruction. The mayhem immediately subsides, and the crew's actions fall into some indiscernible logic. The Omnissiah servants start working in sync, and the binaric clamor becomes a symphony of reports, which the Magos coordinates like a skillful conductor. Good, good, good. That's what we wanted to see. Admirably done, Pascal. Do not ever act like a spineless greenhorn in front of me ever again. Now make this rebellious lump of metal take us out of here. Not gonna do either of those. Admirably done, Pascal. The Omnissiah guides me. The prayers of the tech priest surrounding the cogitator almost drown out the sounds of the bustling bridge behind you. Pascal, poring intently over the data slate in his hands, extends a mechadendrite towards you. Please, take your place at the cogitator, Lord Captain. First, explain what we are doing. I studied the data and discovered a machine node that was damaged as a result of the heretic sabotage. The functioning of the warp sextant was tampered with, and the ship's spirit, aggrieved by this violation of the right of operation, is now rejecting its calculations. I sought a way to rectify this error, and have concluded that your participation is necessary to do so. The cogitator systems of this Temple of the Omnissiah are subordinate to the shell, whose repository serves the machine we see before us. A machine created for your predecessor, and one that uses biological signatures of the dynastic blood in its computations. The spirit should recognize the ship's master and submit to his will. Should. Pascal speaks the final word with a slight tremor in his synthesized voice. That should sound less than reassuring. Lord Captain, comes the cackle from Pascal's box, part beleaguered, sigh, part interference. I am still poorly acquainted with this voidship. The acolytes here have adopted their own customs for conversing with the machine spirits. They do not know me, and they express themselves in a little-known dialect of the Technolinga. I will trust in the Omnissiah that my analysis of the data was correct. It means we have a chance of appeasing the ship's spirit. Okay, let's go to the cogitator. The huge machine in front of you is lit with dozens of vid screens and hundreds of lumens. The blinking lights and endless rush of symbols and digits on the green background make your eyes water, and the vague sense of alarm simmers in the depths of your mind. The typical reaction of a layperson when confronted with the magnitude of the Omnissiah's creation. Among the numerous controls, you see the mouth of a cyber gargoyle, the same as at the gate to the warrant chamber. Pascal's voice becomes imbued with imperious force. Servants of the machine god, heed my command. Acolytes, prepare the incense instrumentation for the liturgy of machine spirit propitiation. Senior technomats, recite the prayer to generate the current data report. Operations will be marked with the campanological protocol. Omnissiah rejoice. I must inform you that for the purpose of safety, complete reassembly of the warp sextant and updating of its datasmith blessings are required. If this is not done, then at launch, the volume of aggregate calculation errors could result in the destruction of the data crypts. Data repository sanctified by the Adeptus Mechanicus to be used in conjunction with a cogitator. But as we do not have 100 hours at our disposal, we must omit this procedure. Pascal looks down at the data slate in his hands. A minor deviation from the right of operation, for the sake of appeasing the spirit. What must I do? Deviating from the right of operation? That sounds dubious, especially coming from you. Listen, can't you do all this work without me? I am no servant of the Omnissiah, after all. No, just simply, what must I do? We'll trust him. It's dubious, but we'll trust him. What must I do? Place your hand inside the throat of the cogitator guardian, the cyber gargoyle, which has been assigned to guard the forbidden data crypts. The dynastic blood extracted from your veins will serve as a key to the data core where the machine spirit dwells. To it, we will offer our prayers so that we may bypass the protective protocol for defective connections and launch the warp sextant. Pascal's voice grows quieter. The laws of the Omnissiah know no exceptions, and so in this ritual I will remain at your side to placate the wrathful machine spirit in whose abode you will be intruding. Follow my liturgies, Lord Captain, and may we receive his blessing. Again, I'm not gonna argue with him. He seems to generally be knowing what he's doing. I love 40k though, where it's like, we're dealing with computers, and there's like, alright, get out the candles, get out the incense burners, say your prayers. That's how we work with machines. So good. We'll place our hand in the cyber gargoyle's mouth. The metal jaws clamp down on your hand, breaking your delicate corporeal sheath and releasing warm red liquid into its gullet. At the same moment, the image on the vid screen before you changes. Connecting 000.1, 0.2.3. Success, Reg 789.0344. Access init ID 8627. NOM OS operational respec act. Gesture at the vid screen. What does it all mean? Reach out and touch the keys on the instrument panel. Do not push random buttons. We don't know what this is doing. By my authority, I revoke the inviolability protocol of the warp engine. We'll first ask what it means. What does it all mean? At the sound of your voice, the cogitator's servant, whose bronze-bound skeleton is built in the cogitator's housing, shudders. With a screech, its skull rotates toward you and then stops in that position. Benevolent code, a voice receptor. Pascal emits a sequence of binary signals and then is silent for several seconds. I hypothesize that the defect is located in the analyzer block. I register a reaction to the signal, but no processed response. A temporary override is permissible. The Magos intently studies the vid screen. The shell was created on a forge world unknown to me, initiating standard invocation of the machine spirit. Pascal leans over the adjacent instrument panel and sets his hands on the controls. At the same time, a quiet stream of machine code begins pouring forth from his box. What should I do now? Lord Captain, I now ask you to address the machine spirit. Speak the following command. By my authority, I revoke the inviolability protocol of the warp engine. The voice receptor will receive the vocal entry. Without your sanction, the machine spirits will not accept the data from the warp sextant. Okay, by my authority, I revoke the inviolability, it's a hard word, protocol of the warp engine. One of the cogitator's vid screens turns red. Pascal sees this and raises his hand, signaling to the rest of the tech priests, then withdraws a connector from his sleeve and connects it to the machine. Servants of the Omnissiah, make now the offering of cleansed data crypts to the machine spirit so that it may be filled with their true and calibrated data. May the Omnissiah have mercy on our souls. In meek solemnity, the acolytes offer up their cleansed data crypts to the warp engine, one after another, repeating prayers of exaltation. After anointing the contacts with sacred unguents, Pascal inserts them into the cogitator slots. Your head begins to spin from the holy censer's foul-smelling clouds of smoke, and from the loss of the blood that this hypergorgoyle continues to drink from you, and the world swims before your eyes. So it didn't just take like a small sampling, it still bit down on our hand and still withdrawing blood from us. Fantastic. To the point where we're starting to feel dizzy from lack of blood. Awesome. Let this mechanism waken in renewed purity. Pascal enters a sequence of commands and raises his head, watching the vid screens. Suddenly he stops dead. No! His fingers fly over the command runes, entering command after command. His mechadendrites clicking and their pincers pull at one lever after another. The vid screens fill with strings of symbols, completely incomprehensible to you, but clearly conveying something to the Magos. What is happening? After a few seconds, one of the data crypts mounted on the cogitator begins to emit sparks. A moment later, another data crypt does the same. The next bursts into flames and gives off foul-smelling smoke. Around you, the Omnissiah's servants break off from their prayers and someone bursts into frantic pleading. Pascal mournfully grates out, "The massive errors in the warp sextant's calculations is destroying the data repositories. The offering did not appease the ship's spirit. The warp engine cannot be filled with the motive force. We are trapped." A moment later, the Magos continues uncertainly, "Perhaps an alternative Ryzen protocol? Or an emergency launch of the auxiliary coils?" The tech priest bends over the cogitator, but something in his pose and movements reveals his desperation. While the other vid screens are filled with more and more strings of symbols, the monitor in front of you blinks and his static image changes. Pascal is too engrossed in his rituals to notice. Read the information on the vid screen. Input, pack.comp. NomOS, stab true. NomOS, stab false. Stat check init. Perturb.reg. Disturb.reg. NomOS opt response query. Magos Hanneman, a moment if you will. Pascal turns toward you. His flickering visor betrays his anxious state. "Lord Captain, He stops short when he sees the vid screen. Distorted transmissions from the data core. Most likely the residual cognitive functions of the built-in servitors. Omnissiah, shield us from machine ghosts." He returns to manipulating the cogitator's command runes. "Machine spirit, can you hear me?" The cogitator's servant creaks quietly in its joints, a sound that is drowned out by the binary hymns and the tapping of command runes. Input prompt, NamOS ping, NamOS request response, NamOS operate response injury, NamOS operating response rescue, NamOS operating response query. Rescue, Machine Spirit, rescue us. Machine Spirit, this is the Lord Captain of this vessel. Obey me and start the warp engine. O hallowed Machine Spirit, in the name of the Omnissiah and the Emperor, reveal unto us your power and guard us from our doom. A useless pile of scrap, the rogue trader commands you, rid us of your malady and submit to my will. It seems to be responding to us, so I could announce myself as the Lord Captain and hope it's willing to response. Or I could go with the more tech priesty option. Yeah. Injury rescue query. Or I could just go rescue. Yes, Machine Spirit, rescue us. But I think I'm going to go with the O hallowed Machine Spirit. In the name of the Omnissiah and the Emperor, reveal unto us your power and guard us against our doom. Pascal echoes your sentiments with a triumphant sound of a binaric hymn. Pascal's next vocalization goes unsynthesized as he sees the vid screen begin to stabilize one after another. The strings frenetically galloping across the green background are replaced with stable images of regularly updating status reports. Only one monitor remains inexplicably red. The tech priest Vox crackles in shock, but his report is as clipped and clinical as ever. Registering warp sextant activated. Registering data stream stabilizing. Registering 0 data errors found. Reporting the warp engine is ready for translation. After a pause, Pascal adds, I am also reporting evidence indicating a Category 3 miracle fulfilling the criterion. Thou shalt witness the mechanism that toils in glorification of its function and in defiance of deactivation. Lord Captain Ravor here. The crew are almost finished carrying out the orders given earlier, and I've just received confirmation from the engineering halls. I don't know what you did, but the warp engine's up and ready to go. We're ready to begin the translation to the warp, your lordship. What just happened? Pascal pauses. I hypothesized that the ship's spirit heard our prayers and intervened. It summoned the power of the Omnissiah to do something beyond my comprehension. It appears the Omnissiah perceives and knows the power of your faith, Pascal. He would not have worked this miracle otherwise. Pascal, I expected you to save my ship yourself, not pray for a miracle. Your performance is unsatisfactory. I know little of the Omnissiah's sacred machines, but what I saw on the screen looked strange. We are not going to insult Pascal. I know little of the Omnissiah's sacred machines, but what I saw on that screen looked strange. We're going to start with that. Hopefully we can still, you know, compliment Pascal. A non-standard output of information lost in the data core. The servitors used as data conduits are not always fully lobotomized. Fragments of their thoughts can appear even in pure code. Pascal falls silent, immersed in thought. It appears the Omnissiah perceives and knows the power of your faith, Pascal. He would not have worked this miracle otherwise. I hope you will grant me a revelation that will allow me to comprehend the nature of this miracle. Pascal's vox buzzes with wonder and an undercurrent of exultation. Lord Captain speaking, I give the order to commence translation to the warp. Have we already blown up the planet? Because I would have thought that's something they would have, I don't know, had dialogue about. Or even a full cutscene showing it or something. Exterminatus is a big deal. But, alright, let's begin translation to the warp. Waiting for you to ascend to the captain's thrones, Lord Captain. May the Emperor protect us. Oh. That's probably the Exterminatus. Again, feel bad for the people on that planet. But, you gotta do what you gotta do. Comparing permissible objectives. Yep, then the shutters go down because if looking into the warp would drive people mad. So they intentionally shut the windows so we can't see it.
Flagship made its way out of the doomed star system. As the voidship plunged deeper into the Koronus Expanse, the rogue trader's subjects bid a formal farewell to the late head of the dynasty, Theodora von Valancius. Having paid their last respects, the crew gathered